Hey, I'm Richard Miller with Goldie May, and this is the live genealogy research series. Watch as James Tanner and I, along with invited guests, work through a genealogy problem with no script and no agenda. Maybe you'll learn from the big strategy, maybe you'll learn from the small features and the tools, or maybe you'll just see a better way to do it and you can leave a comment so we can all learn. I hope you find this really helpful. Now, here is the research. Okay, welcome to episode 10. We're going to continue with the project we worked on in episode 9, but it's not intended that you have to have watched that episode. We're going to give you a little bit of background, and then we'll continue researching on this ancestor, Mary Ann Leach. So last week when we talked, I said this was an end-of-line situation, more or less, because Mary Ann Leach has 100 plus sources, and her parents have one or no sources, really. And so James and I got into this, looked at a few sources to sort of see if we were ready to jump over the pond back to Ireland, where she was from, and decided we weren't quite ready for that. But we also saw some anomalies. And as I looked at this, in between episodes, I realized there was explanation for some of the things that I thought were errors at first. So James, I thought I'd show you those, and then we can kind of jump into, you had some realizations afterwards as well. So we could take a look at those. Okay, so one of those was that her last census record, 1900, was here. And when we looked at it, we were a little confused because, well, let me just even show you this version. We were confused because it said the husband was from Utah and we thought he's from Ireland. Well, what's going on here is this is a son who is the head of household, age 44. And so we were confusing William, the father and husband, with William, the son. And so that's why that's there. And then William, the father, was still alive at that point, 1900. But what I didn't realize when we talked in our last video was that he had a second wife. And so also named Mary Barbara Bolans. And she is from Germany. And they did live in San Juan County, Utah. So the census record where we found him in 1900 in this other county of Utah also appears to be correct because he's living with this other wife in this other county of Utah. So those, what we found before seemed to have explanation as I looked into it further. And then James, you had some, I think, realizations about Ireland as well.
Yeah, it was kind of an overlooking the fact that one of the rules that we get to, and I guess during the time that you're becoming oriented to what's going on with the family, you don't get to the, entire story and dump it all out at the same time. The most important factor having to do with this particular research is that they came from Ireland, and the date, according to the record you just showed in a source, they immigrated into the United States in 1844.
Yeah.
The important thing about that is that during that period of time, beginning in 1842, was the Irish potato famine. They were having famines in Ireland all along, and the country was in a kind of a very poor condition because of some of the things that had happened previously. And I mentioned the previous problem was that when the British came in and took over Ireland, and particularly in Northern Ireland, they decided to create what they called the plantation system of farming. Well, they also began a transition from raising food to raising sheep. And they didn't do this to benefit any of the people who were living in Ireland, even those who may have come from England or Scotland. And so there were terrific problems when they were dependent almost entirely on the primary food, which was potatoes.
Okay.
And so basically what happened is that infection came to the potatoes and basically wiped out the entire crop throughout the country.
Wow.
As a result of that, from the period from 1842 until well into the 1850s, well over 1 million people migrated from Ireland to the Americas, primarily to the United States, and over 1 million people died. So the population was decreased by a significant percentage. You can imagine that this kind of migration created a tremendous problem with records.
Yeah,
and
great point.
Subsequently, if they came over during that period of time, it starts to be there's kind of a spike of how difficult it is to find the families. And so that's not surprising. And it's interesting that over the past year or so, I've dealt probably close to 90% of every question I've talked about anyone to has been immigration. And I would guess that a very high percentage of those have been from Ireland.
Interesting.
And so it's not something that you can solve immediately, but by doing some very careful and very methodical ways, you can find the records you want to. What you're looking for is the key records that show the connection, not only show the connection to Ireland, but show exactly where they came from.
Okay.
If we know that, then there's the next record, and that is the record destruction and the unavailability of certain types of records in Ireland and even in Northern Ireland. And so you begin to look at other sources of records. And for one of the reasons why this was important is that there's a couple of textbooks, not textbooks, but books out there that just simply outline all the records that have survived in Ireland from all of this. Okay. And it's a good idea to begin your research by having an overview of the records that may be available. And there are some very good Irish websites. Research also depends heavily on whether or not they were Protestants or Catholics and whether they lived in Northern Ireland or in the rest of Ireland. There's all sorts of different factors. But going through that here, I'll mention those as we go through. But the prominent one is that these people immigrated right not just at the beginning, but in the middle of the potato famine when people were already starving.
Okay. Very, very important point.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay. So let's get back to where they are and let's just do a quick survey of the types of sources that we have, because we have some rather large numbers, relatively large numbers of sources. But one of the things I think that I noticed previously, well, there's a lot of them that can specify exactly when they came, but the key here would be, do they actually mention the place? In other words, we'd need to go through all of the memories in kind of detail and see if they tell us a town or even down to a town, rather than just saying, yeah, they came from Ireland, which is pretty common.
Okay.
Oh, and there's one more factor that I didn't mention previously, and that is there was a tremendous amount of prejudice against Irish immigrants.
I see.
In America. The prejudice against the Irish immigrants during this time period was larger than any other immigration issue, except perhaps for Asian immigrants. And another thing to understand is that in the United States at that time period, there were no immigration laws.
So this was just open borders and come if you want to. And
if the answer was in 1844, you either got off a ship and walked into the country, or you walked across the border. And unless there was some kind of record from the passenger list or something that told where you were coming from, where you were going, it was just not nobody cared. There was nobody there, and if they came through any other port, like here, rather than like New York or Boston or Philadelphia, in New Orleans, there are New Orleans passenger lists and things like that. But we don't seem to have any trouble here with knowing exactly when they arrived. But it doesn't help us a lot in where they came from, because there were no records specifically required to be kept. It doesn't matter here, because what we have is an exact date when they arrived in New Orleans. So we know when they got here. The question is, the records that were kept afterwards, and until 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act, there just weren't any immigrant records in the United States to speak of.
Okay.
And so we're not going to rely on looking for those kinds of records. But if you do have an immigrant that's after 1882, there are more records up to and including up to 1906, when the federal government took over naturalization in the federal courts.
Okay.
So this is the question. That's why there are so many questions about this particular subject, is because they didn't really have to tell anybody where they came from. Yeah, and sometimes it was not in their interest to tell people.
So the ship had a manifest potentially, but the government didn't track people.
And the ship would just say they came from wherever they came. And a lot of times, even if they came from Ireland, they came from Liverpool because
Oh,
they
right.
left from
Which
England
seems to be
from this
true
war.
here. Yeah.
They had to get across the channel between Ireland and England, and then
Yeah.
they got on a boat to Liverpool.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That sets our parameters a little bit. And you think we ought to look at memories and then,
Well,
we
the
browse and
question
then cut it down, or?
the question I'm asking, I guess, is that at some point we need to go through each one of these. It's very easy to tell really quickly. Can you go down through the list? See, here it says in 1844 that they came from Liverpool to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately what people begin to think when they see the port of departure, they think, well, that's where they lived. They lived in Liverpool, or they lived in Hamburg, Germany, or they lived in, Genoa, Italy, or wherever, which were some of the major ports. And because of that, that they begin to get off the right track right out of the bag.
I see.
When you
Okay.
get out of the chute, you're thinking wrong. So basically, the rule, and we'll have to repeat that, is that you look for evidence of the origin of the immigrant in the country of arrival, not in the country of departure.
Okay.
So for as much as what we can do, the research here needs to be on the individuals. You can say, well, look, we have 133 sources. So, well, that's great, except if none of those sources happen to mention where the specific place they came from, then your research is really at ground zero. You're nowhere,
Yeah.
So it's nice to know all this stuff about the people and all that, but Ireland as such, saying they came from Ireland isn't much of a help.
Yeah.
Now, none of the census records are going to be specific at all. So anything that happened with the census is not. The entry records, now, you have to see what they called that, because these were missionary entry records. So let's see what happens.
And they were, I believe, for her children. So
yes, okay, those
in
all
entry 4.
Yeah, those are apparently children, and they don't have anything.
James, Thomas,
where she
James.
might have come from.
We've got death records.
A burial record. It's possible that the burial records might have had that information. It's not. No, see, it's all just where she lived when she died.
Billion graves. And small chance the hometown would be printed on a gravestone, right? But
yeah, not where
likely.
they came from. Yeah. No, you mean like from where they came from in Ireland?
Yeah, where they came from.
Not a chance.
Okay.
I've seen that. No, but that's not something I've seen commonly enough to be
worth checking. Yeah. Okay.
But you never know which record is going to be the key record in this, because the key record for me in finding my Irish ancestor, at least where he was from, was a marriage record. And so you never know which record is going to turn up that just says, oh, by the way, this person came from
hometown.
The hometown.
Yeah.
Now, membership records might, because they ask for the place of birth. So if you go,
I remember we opened this last time, and I didn't notice quickly enough that we were looking at William, the husband's.
Yeah, but we're going to assume they came from close to the same area.
Yeah. Good point.
So that would be at least a place to start. But see, it doesn't.
Nothing.
As far as I can see, it doesn't say anything about where they came from in Ireland.
What about that? Banbridge?
Where's Banbridge Down? Let's look that up. Yeah, okay. That's where they are. See, there's your key there.
And Adam Charles, Banbridge Down. Okay, so we're here. And okay, that's great. Not something I'd seen before. I don't think it even explicitly said that I don't notice that it said it was, oh yeah, there it is, place. So it's a little bit.
Yeah, this is
name, birthday, place.
But this is a synopsis of whatever the original record looked like with age breaks and everything.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something to go off of.
Well, let's zoom in on that.
And I don't know if it's, let me try to play with this a little bit. Banbridge, UK. Town in County Down, Northern Ireland. Lies on the River Bann.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so now if we make that assumption, then we're going to start to look for records for that. So the first thing we would do immediately is to go to FamilySearch. We've got that Banbridge in our head, so that's probably a good idea. If you're doing your research log, it's a good idea to put the information in about the place and where you found it, so that when you come back to this in a week or a month or a year, you don't have to redo all that. You can think, okay.
Yeah, put that there.
And that makes it a lot simpler to do this. Now, a lot of times when people come to this point and they haven't found this record yet, this is a good illustration of the fact that the churches very frequently recorded their place of origin simply for the reason that they were concerned that they were actually members of the church. Okay, so if they came from Northern Ireland, they were probably Presbyterians from Scotland. That was the predominant religion. Or
versus
they could have
the
been
Catholics,
very, very small minority Catholics.
Yeah.
Or they might have been another Protestant religion, but there weren't that many available. Okay. So what happens here is that when you come to America and they came and they were Presbyterians from Ireland, they had to show proof of membership. They had to do the same thing with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. There wasn't any, there was no, they didn't just say, oh, well, I'm a member. They'd say, when were you baptized? Were you baptized? Who baptized you?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing you got with all the other churches. So whenever I start this process, I always say, well, what church they belong to? And they go, oh. Well, I say, well, okay, let's start with that as the goal. If you can do a research here and figure out which church all these people belong to, we at least have one way of looking for records. Because the church records, there was a huge destruction in the 1920s of the records, during the time when Ireland was fighting for independence from England, and they blew up. There was an unfortunate thing. They were storing ammunition in the archives. That was a good idea, and it blew up, whether it got bombed or whatever, and it pretty much destroyed a lot of the census and other kinds of records that we rely on. And so that's kind of the hole we dig ourselves out of, or have to dig ourselves out of when we're working in Ireland. But church records weren't all stored in that particular archive. So
great. Yeah.
Church records can be scattered all over. Okay, so we'll start looking for Bainbridge.
Okay.
And go to search. Yeah, we're just going to do a catalog search.
Catalog. Okay.
Might as well put in Bainbridge. Banbridge. There it is. It's already there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it says C Patrick Banbridge up there. Because there's apparently, so here we have church records. So let's click on that and see what the church records have. Okay, marriage registers for the Presbyterian Church and parochial registers of Tullish Down. Now do a quick search on the parents' on her record for marriage record and see what there is.
I believe we said there was maybe just the one kind of text source, nothing kind of primary. 1798, no, I don't think there's any source on that marriage date.
Okay. So this is the first thing we'd like to look for, because if we find their marriage record in the Presbyterian Church records, then we've got probable for all the children that were born there before they joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so and are these? Let's open that one.
Okay, so there they are, 901 pages. And if we go here, see what years that are covered here. These are all in the 1700s. And then there's burials from 16 to 1845, but you might get the father's burial here.
Okay. And
depending on when he died. He died in 1844. Yeah, he might
44.
just have got under the gun there and be in these records.
Okay.
So let's see. We only have one record for him. So if we found even the burial record, that would be a great.
It would be huge.
Yeah. So now we have to look at the records themselves.
Baptisms, marriages, and then where's our index to deaths? Maybe that's...
There is no index to this. So, and we notice at the top of this page, it says clones register. And it says parish register of clones, diocese of clones, of Cloger. Okay, so we want to look up that first of all, make sure we're not looking in the wrong place. So put clones diocese or Cloger diocese in not UK. That'll give you a town probably in England.
Okay.
Oh, it's Ireland. Okay, but go to put diocese.
The diocese of Cloger.
Of Cloger. It's probably in the same diocese. Dioceses are very large areas. But the smaller one would be the clones.
Okay, yeah, 30 miles away. So that's...
Put Cloger diocese, clones. Was it a parish? They call it a parish. Yes, parish register. Clones parish. Just try clones. Just not just clones. That. Just say clones parish, Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Why want I just take this to Google instead of the maps?
Yeah, that might be a better idea. Because the parish may not be there. There it is.
Oh, there you go.
Parish of Clones, Cloger Diocese. Now you can click on that. Right here you have the direction for contact. There's the telephone number up there at the top. So,
right, yeah.
So you can call up and say, my great-grandfather, whoever it is, was baptized in the parish, Clones Parish, and he lived in Banbridge. And would you happen to have any records or know where the records of his baptism would be?
And so you're saying that would be an alternative to browsing through this typed index that someone else did?
No, it wouldn't be it'd be an alternative, but it's just, if you run out of everything else, I'm just pointing, as long as we're looking at the parish register, the parish website, to know that it's still there, and you simply have to talk to. You may just have to talk to these people.
Is it possible they'd have kind of a searchable index that
they may, and they may also
postdates this one?
They may also be making a few bucks on the side from it. So you have to, obviously, whenever you do something like that, you say, I understand there might be a charge for this, but, and I would be willing to pay for this, or,
that might be worth it versus browsing these 900 pages.
I'm looking for the baptism for my father, and I understand that there might be a charge for finding this, but, and that way you may end up to get the person who they designate and gets to do all these, and then they put the money in the church, or they may put it in somebody's pocket, but one way or the other, you get the record.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay, so now what's left is just to go through this record. Now, the next thing you want to do on these records is go to the thumbnail view. Yeah. And see where they divided there. Go back up a little bit. You see where it says there's kind of a blank page in there?
Kind of there.
Go down about the fourth row down.
Oh, right there. Yeah.
See, that's where these records, it says page missing. Okay, well, what you need to do is look at those, because there may be divisions between sections of the book or the record or other things that divide this up into sections. So to get an idea of what you're looking at, you can then come down through these records.
We'll go pretty small.
If it's just one huge long record, which that appears to be, then the only way that you can really handle this kind of record is go all the way to the end, first of all.
I want to double check that it's chronological order.
Well,
it looked like one of the first records was 16.
Yeah, there's some at the end. There's an end of roll. I want to go back through it.
Okay, yeah, if this is chronological order, I think I was expecting it to be in the 1800s, not 1792. So that
Well, keep going and
may
see
not be
what
totally.
we're getting here. And we started, and where was it when we started?
Year-wise, it was like 1600s in that first.
So
And
yeah.
we did have kind of this internal page that said, baptism start at page 1, marriages 363.
Mm-hmm.
But they talk about both going into the 1800s.
We'll go up to where it says image number 7 up there and put in 363, and let's see what. I'm working through these the way that I would do that. See, now here's an 1830.
I'll jump a couple.
Okay, click on the thumbnails again.
Okay.
And then click down about 1 row or 2 rows.
It's 529.
They don't look like they're in any kind of order. There's 33.
No, they look pretty mixed.
So do we have a target date for when they got married?
So we said 1798.
1798. So
that's to be believed.
That may be in that record set. And there's no substitute for paging through it, page by page, and looking at every page. No, there really isn't. I mean, no, there's any. It's not. It won't do it automatically.
Okay, here's 1798.
What were we looking for?
And we were looking. It said 1798. No sources, but okay. Mikado and Wheaton. And this is like one page of 1798, but
rather than spend the rest of the time we're going to be looking at that one record, let's go see. Make sure you record that document in your in your research log.
Come back to that one. Okay.
Okay, because that's going to be where you're going to come back to, just for marriage record and also for a death record.
Yeah, that's right. I guess we could look for also a death record.
Okay, now we're just going to have to leave that for some time period spent. But then let's go to images.
So here, right?
Well, go back to the catalog first of all, and let's see what else we had. Other records. So we have records, cemeteries. Right, okay. So check the cemetery. There's a couple of looks like a book. Those look like all books.
Okay.
But there's the parish of C. Patrick, which is apparently the one we're looking for.
That's
and there are
physical book
that are available in the Family History Library. Now, here's what we do with these. Copy that. The Heart of Down, Old Bainbridge Families. Copy that title.
Okay.
Okay. And now we go to Google. And there we go. Books of Ireland, Google. Might click on that. See, that says get print books. So that's not a copy.
Okay. They don't have that online then.
Okay. Go up to the search and put archive.org after it. Okay. There it is. Oh, there's Jewish Memorials Association down at there. That may have something. Now, what you're going to do when you get into the Internet Archive is look for the same book. So go to archive.org.
Oops.
And go to books.
Go ahead and choose.
Yeah. And then do search this collection and just put in the name of the book. And change it to a text contents.
Okay.
Search. Because otherwise won't find you anything. Yeah, now you need to search again. Click the
spinning, I think.
Either return or click the magnifying glass. Okay. There it is.
Writings on Irish History.
Volume 11. Volume whatever it is. Just a second. What it's going to do is search for your search term in the book, which doesn't make any sense. So you can stop that. But now when you get the book open and just click each page. Yeah, we don't.
Let's get too many here, but
not worried about it.
I kind of, I wondered if
it's just a solid bar at the bottom so that it found so what we want to do is just go through a page. There's 3,490 pages in this book.
It's kind of bogging down here.
Yeah, it's too big.
So I wonder if this was a book that referenced our book that we wanted.
Maybe, but this is a serial publication. Keep going. It might have more information. Okay, well, this is basically it. If you log into archive.org. You can then get that for a 2-week period of time online.
Okay. So the library. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to make sure you record that book and the place where you got it in your research log.
I'm going to say, yeah.
And you'll come back to that too, because you may very well find this family may have lived in that same parish for hundreds of years, and you may find a lot of relatives in there.
Okay.
Eventually. Okay. So now we'll go back, FamilySearch, catalog entries, and see what other things we have. And there's more books to look at. There's another book that was there. There's the parish of St. Patrick,
Okay.
Tombstones of Ireland, of Counties Down.
So you get those at the physical library, or we can pursue them online like we did.
Yeah. Just go to see if those books have been digitized and there's some in one of the online digital libraries, starting with archive.org, which is the biggest.
Okay.
And then we have directories. Let's see when that time period was and see if the towns, there's Banbridge. Yeah. And this is from what year?
Not seen. Oh, reprint of the
1819 edition. Oh, that'd be one to look at.
Yeah. General directory of, that'd be great. Yeah.
And it says it's on microfilm. The microfilming has been all digitized, but the cataloging of the microfilm at FamilySearch is way behind. So it may be a long time before. But once again, you're going to look to see if this book is someplace else.
Okay. Okay, so we can pursue these books. I guess we could also go into the parent jurisdiction here, C. Patrick, and we may or may not have something here, I suppose.
Taxation, yes.
Taxation. Okay.
There's what's called tithing records, and the tithing records are actually record the place and the farm or the town or the house or whatever of the person. So they're very helpful.
Okay, good.
And then there's more church records that we can go into.
Church records. Good. And then I guess, of course, we could go to Ancestry.com's catalog, look for Banbridge, look for C. Patrick or County Down. Okay, what other big things are we missing that we could pursue if we...
Okay, so the next thing we want to do, we want land and property, but the fact that they came to America in the middle of the potato famine is a strong indicator that they didn't own anything.
So tenant farmers, and
they were probably some kind of tenant farmer, or someone, a laborer, or someone who worked in the city who couldn't make any money and couldn't buy food. It goes on and on. And then one more place to look real quick is go up at the top of this page and go to images, search. Second images. One is images.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, now put in Banbridge. County Down, there it is. Click on it. Okay, now there's no additional records. That's just a quick check because this is where current records are being piled into FamilySearch, and if there's more records. So take out, first of all, do County Down.
County Down, okay.
Yeah. And there's more from County Down. So this is another place where there are records to look at.
20s. Okay, yeah.
And there's a few results here. And then go up to, let's see, click, that's about all there are. There would be more places in County Down than there would be. Okay, well that looks like we've got a lot of stuff.
We got a lot to research here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's nice that we found Banbridge because going into this call, we didn't know where in Ireland it might be, even to start looking. So to find that obscure reference to a city kind of in the metadata almost of this record or this kind of paragraph of data as maybe the one reference to their hometown, that's helpful. And maybe if I were to go comb through the rest of the sources on FamilySearch, we'd find some other reference to Banbridge as well. That'd be worth looking at. But it's great to find that as our next go-to point.
Yeah. Now that may be corrected in the future if we find out that was not a place that they were actually from. But all we have to do is find one record someplace in Ireland that has that record on it, which we don't have now.
Yeah.
And then we are probably have the whole history of the family going back,
Good. Okay.
at least
All
to the
right.
to around the, it could be back as far as the 1600s. So
Okay. That'll take us far.
that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
All right.
for the
Thanks, James.
opportunity.
Okay.